Now, I may be busy with work during the holiday season and trying to get some of your guys' requests done and finishing up marathons like, Terminator and stuff like that. But I owe it not just to myself, but to you guys to give my thoughts on the best movie I've seen all freaking year. Okay, Dark Knight. Yeah, I liked it. I really liked it. Avengers. It's a fanboy dream. It's something that I wanted to see for ages. I never thought that it was going to be actually put into theatrical production. But The Hobbit. I adore the Middle-earth mythology. I love the Lord of the Rings movie series. And yeah, there's going to be people who are going to be like, yeah, I don't see as much liking into this thing. I didn't expect this to be Lord of the Rings Act 2. I didn't expect... did you, Moses, think...
No.
Yeah.
I thought it would be like a step, just a bit step under, but I didn't expect it to be the same level.
I didn't expect the amount of glory and, epicness to be brought to the same height that Lord of the Rings did. Lord of the Rings is your story about, world-saving events. Whereas this is really, it's about a kind of honor and dignity revenge piece, basically, the Lord of the Rings is. And I think that it's also about, really discovering the character of Bilbo Baggins and, discovering kind of the hero within. At least that's what I've gained from the material reading The Hobbit and also seeing the 1970... Well, it's from the 70s, the cartoon version that I saw when I was a kid. So I at least have some idea about where this book comes from and how they can adapt it. But honestly, yeah, we walked out of this thing. We loved it. Yeah, I don't think I could really be much happier than I am right now having seen it. I thought that the cast was remarkable. I love that Pete Jackson loves to take new talent and really find hidden gems around the world. In terms of Richard Artenbridge, who is Thorin, I cannot tell you how much I loved the way they took Thorin. It's kind of a darker version of Aragorn in terms of a guy trying to reclaim his identity and his heritage, and also, having a very emotional connection to his enemies. But yeah, loved a lot of it. What was the things you loved most of all?
I loved everything. The atmosphere was good. I love the new characters. They're all really cool characters, and I really appreciated Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah,
a lot more than before.
Bilbo, if you didn't have any real appreciation of the backstory that you kind of got referenced in Lord of the Rings, you don't know too much about him except that he is a celebrity, somewhat celebrity, a more infamous celebrity in the Shire, in terms of what he's well known for, being this hobbit that doesn't appreciate the kind of ways of the hobbit. And the themes in this book, of this movie adaptation, are handled so well, and I thought they were developed incredibly for what I think the book was trying to get across, and fits to an appropriate level what I think our generation would accept, and not just water down what Tolkien was writing 70 years ago. But yeah, if you don't know the story about this one, it's not about the ring. It's not about the Dark Lord Sauron or any big stakes like that. Basically, what you've got here is a story about dwarves trying to reclaim their home. It's been taken by a dragon named Smaug. I honestly grew up pronouncing it Smog. Smaug sounds stupid to me. It sounds like something you'd call a Saturday morning cartoon villain, but that's basically Smaug in a nutshell. That this is like an evil dragon who has taken over a mountain with gold. What does a dragon need gold for? What's it gonna buy? Is he like a giant magpie?
Maybe dragons like shiny things. Maybe.
But yeah, I was like, okay, I see whether this is your basic sword and sorcery thing, and that is kind of what is different with this movie. The visuals, first of all, we saw it in 3D. 3D was good, except for the action scenes. That's where the fast pacing and the film rate really didn't mix well in terms of.
If you watch the non 3D, then you're fine. Then.
Well, Well, I'm gonna have to, I'm still seeing this in 2D. I'm gonna go see it again, so I'll find out for sure. But yeah, the action can get really kind of blurry and give you a bit of a headache in terms of if you are watching in 3D. And I thought that the visuals here, okay, I knew that Guillermo del Toro was originally attached as the director of this, and he's still the producer. And you can feel his touch in certain things. We saw Pan's Labyrinth not too long ago. We saw a lot of similarities in the creature designs. I would say mostly the creature designs, maybe a little bit of the art department. I think that...
But I could feel his work in, like, those little...
the goblins?
The goblins.
The goblins, definitely. I was like, that's something that could have walked right out of Hellboy. And I thought that it was good because I wanted... Okay, Pete Jackson, he made the series. He cannot walk away from this project. I'm so glad that he picked up the helm. But at the same time, a part of me was curious, what will Guillermo del Toro do? Because it may be interesting, but his movies really wouldn't, like, in terms of an atmosphere, line up with what you got with Lord of the Rings. So I think we got the best of both worlds here. That being said, I do think, though, that the visuals are a bit... I wouldn't say unfamiliar. I think some of the visuals, like some of the atmosphere that they kind of bring here, is stuff that just doesn't line up with stuff you see in Lord of the Rings. Like, Gandalf summons fire out of his fingertips. We were talking about afterward. I'm like, if Gandalf can summon fire at will,
wait, he seems to...
Why wouldn't he ever do that against, like, the friggin' Uruk-hai in Helm's Deep?
He seems to have...
Imagine friggin' Gandalf throwing fireballs like Pyro from the Brotherhood?
Wait, he took down a dragon.
Oh, he took down a dragon. He has fire hands! What does the dragon shoot? Fire! And then there's, like, the scene where, like, he makes the scratch on the door, and all of a sudden it's glowing blue? I'm like...
You can't believe that?
I'm like, what? Like, he's a wizard. But he's never done that before. It's always been this subtlety of the imagery that Pete Jackson was known for with Lord of the Rings. Now, that doesn't mean that I wasn't like, boo, or anything like that. I'm just like, it doesn't really line up with the kind of Gandalf that we know. Granted, it's 60 years earlier, so that's one thing. But there are a couple of times here where I'm just like, I'm not quite appreciating this as much as, like, they could have easily done this. Why is it glowing blue? Like, honestly, why? What's the need for it to glow blue? The only justification is that it's nighttime. But they don't have to come at nighttime. Why do they say come at nighttime? To break into Bilbo's house. By the way, I love the way that they handle that scene, because everything from that chapter that I love, the singing, the throwing of plates and stuff like that, I'm like, they nailed it. They freaking nailed it. It's like the most obnoxious party you could ever have. And there's stuff that really, I think, was ripened better. Yeah, I think backstory was needed in a couple of issues with Lord of the Rings. I think that's why people have told me it's a bit complicated to follow. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't quite fit into The Hobbit, but they kind of filtered in, like Radagast the Brown is in. By the way, I know that's a Doctor Who mythology character. That's the actor, Sylvester McCoy, I believe his name is. I like that they introduced him. That being said, that is kind of what is this movie, one of the main things with this movie that I didn't fully appreciate. They really go into tangents in terms of really just going off into different directions and like with exposition into stuff that doesn't justify the story. Like, oh, there was once this dwarf king who got his head cut off, and oh, there was this goblin who got his head cut off, and that's how golf was invented, and oh, they go into so many flashbacks. And this movie is told in flashback. It's like the story of Bilbo, old Bilbo, telling it to Frodo, who, by the way, is suddenly 10 years older than he was in Lord of the Rings. And it's like, yeah, Elijah, you can't even just, like, kneel down a little bit. Like, they can't even put up makeup on him.